Hello guys, this is Ed speaking. I hope you're all well. Thank you for joining me on the webinar this evening. So for those of you who haven't already, then do feel free to sign up for the free trial with Tradify. So we actually offer 2 weeks on the software, including every feature that we offer and everything that I run through with you today. And there's no credit card needed or anything like that. 2 weeks completely free, and you also get someone from the team over here helping you out throughout to answer any questions. So excellent. So what I'll do then is just run through what a typical job would look like on the Tradify software. So what you can see in front of you at the moment is the dashboard. So I'm actually currently sharing my screen on the web version, which you can log into on a laptop or computer just through our website. We do also have an app available as well. So that's really handy for any of you who've got any team members or even any one-man bands on the call today. You can use it to access information when you're out and about, add notes to jobs, and also fill in those gas safety certificates for any of you plumbing and heating guys on the call. Excellent. So what I'll do then is start off by just sending out a quote. We'll convert that to a job, and then we'll pull it all through to an invoice. So if we jump to quotes on the left-hand side here, any quotes previously sent on Tradify are just going to be stored in this section here. So you can always go back to revisit things and see which stage each quotation's in. So if we just jump to new quote in the top left, if it's someone you've worked with before, Tradify will of course save those details, so you can just search for their name in the search bar. But if it's a case of adding a new customer, just tap the plus sign to add a new customer. Just a case of dropping in name, contact details, and then they're stored on the system. Then you can have also multiple sites under a particular customer as well, if you do have any customers with more than one location. So you can just choose a site from here. Now I'll just type a description in the description box. I'll just put first fix in there for now, and then we can start adding our line items in. So a few different ways of adding in the pricing for jobs. So including an hourly rate is just done by clicking the time option. We've got a list here of all the rates we have added to the software, and then just a case of putting in the quantity of hours, and it will times that by your chosen rate. We can do a material upload for you. So if you speak to your wholesalers and ask them for a CSV or Excel file of a list of their materials, we can actually drop that into Tradify for you. So that's all done in our setup and onboarding call, which is all free of charge. And that just gives you a list of materials in Tradify that you can search for via item code or description. And that will bring up the material with your chosen markup price on there as well, which can be added automatically as a percentage. From the materials stored in Tradify, you can also create kits. So a kit is an example of a job made up of a few different elements. So let's take a boiler upgrade as an example. So that's obviously an example of a job made up of a few different parts. So the customer will just see boiler upgrade to keep it nice and simple, but then you can track those materials and labor that's gone into that on your end, whilst, as I say, just keeping it nice and simple on your customers. And the last option is just to create a miscellaneous quote, where you just jump to the miscellaneous option, and from here you can just do things like add labor and materials. Just a handy option if you haven't got any materials sort of stored on the software, or if it's a sort of a bit of a random job and you just need to type a description and a price. The system can actually send automatic reminders as well. So if you've not heard back in X amount of days, Tradify will just automatically send a reminder email to the potential customer on your behalf, and it can include a personal message as well. And then your terms, whatever they might be, will just be included at the bottom by default. So not something you have to go back and remember to fill out. So let's take a look at what the quote looks like before we send that off. Of course, it's customizable with your logo at the top there, and then some people decide to call it an estimate rather than a quotation. It's completely up to you. So let's tap OK and approve the quote, and then we're ready to send it off. It can of course be printed as well, though, if you need it to. If you decide to email the quote through, these buttons in the bottom right hand side here, the accept and decline buttons, will pull through on your customer's end, so they can, at the tap of a button, either give you the go ahead or tell you no just by clicking one of those buttons. So we'll put this through for now, so I can move to the next stage in the workflow, which will be accepting the quote, and then creating a job from that quote. So if I tap yes, we've now created a job with a unique job number, and that's just where you're going to manage things as soon as you've been given the go-ahead from your customer. So we've got things like these job statuses in the top right-hand side. These aren't set in stone, so that you can change the text and the color on these. Some people will have like a first fix, second fix stage. It's up to you really what you do with these, and you can add additional ones in as well. What I'll do is run you through how to add staff to the job. So if I scroll to the bottom left-hand side here, we've got an option to add staff. Now, we've actually recently introduced a new feature where you can also manage subcontractors as well as employed staff. Staff members have the ability to do things like timesheets, upload pictures, see their diary, whereas your subcontractors have the ability to see the schedule and accept and decline appointments. So really handy, especially if you're working with like a few different subcontractors in it, and it varies quite a lot. So a really nice way to manage those. So let's add a staff member to this job. Now they can get pinged on their iPad or Android device, and it will just pull through on their end and just give them the heads up that they've been assigned a job. But you can restrict the access and the permissions that you actually give them. So, for example, a lot of staff members wouldn't be given access to see things like quotes and invoices, rather just given the access to do things like timesheets and make notes on jobs. So I'll just flick over to my iPad actually, so you can see what it would look like on the app side of things. So this is just the iPad connected to my screen. So often people will get their staff to fill out timesheets, which can be done through the timer, which is just here. It's no problem though, if they do forget to punch in or punch out on a day, they can just go in, or you can go in, click new timesheet entry, and just fill those hours out manually. For any of the gas engineers on the call, all your gas safeties are just in this forms section here. Create form, and then there's the domestic gas safety certificates in there. So if I take an example of the landlord homeowner one, just a case of filling out those key details. And then we can take a declaration at the end in the form of a signature from the engineer as well as the customer. And the beauty of that is it's always just going to be stored under that job. So if you ever need to refer back to it, you know where to find it. Another thing worth doing through the app is just having that ability to upload pictures. So if I jump to notes, new note, from here we can take signatures, upload pictures as well as videos. And of course, you can access your diary when you're out and about to see when you booked in for and where your next job is. I'm just going to stop for a few seconds, see if there's any questions on the app before I sort of jump back to the desktop version. Yeah, great question. iOS or Android, so works on both types of device there. Cool, so I'll jump back to the web version, and then I'll show you how to get the job booked in. So we've sent a quote, we've created a job from the accepted quote. So now let's book the job in. So if I jump to schedule, open scheduler, and here we can see staff members and connections. So connections are the subcontractors I mentioned earlier. So let's just choose a time and date. We can see who's free and when. And then it can email your customer with a personal message and send them an SMS message as well as a reminder. So email gets sent at the point of booking the job in. The text reminder gets sent a day or so beforehand, just as a reminder for your customers. So just a case of toggling that on and off when you do or don't want to use that. It also integrates with Google Calendar as well, this diary. So that just means all of your Google Calendar appointments, all your staffs can pull through to the Tradify software to make sure you're not double booking yourself. Let's jump back to the job then. And everything in here is stored under the one hub. So in the time section will be any timesheets your staff have filled out. Costs can be tracked in here. So if we just initially copy our materials from the quote, it will just give us a running total in the bottom right hand side of current charges on the job, and you can obviously keep adding to this. Customer doesn't see any of this. This is more for your records, and then you can decide what to sort of pull through an invoice at the end. Excellent. So let's pull it through to an invoice then. So if I jump to the invoices tab at the top here, go new invoice. There's a couple of ways of invoicing through Tradify. We can copy our hours and costs, so timesheets through to an invoice, or if there's a quote attached to the job, we can take a percentage as a deposit or just copy the whole thing over. So let's take a percentage as an example. So percentage of quote, let's say 50%, create draft invoice. And now we've just created a new invoice with 50% of that quote. Invoice will send automatic reminders as well. And we do integrate with a payment provider called Stripe. So that means embedding a link on your invoices that the customer can just click and pay straight away, which we find people get paid faster through that method as opposed to waiting for people to set up the relevant bank transfer. So this is an idea of what the invoice would look like. Like the quote, it's all customizable with your own logos. Tap approve, and we can email this out. And that's the 50% of the job invoice. When I jump back to the job, it will of course remember we've taken 50%. When you're ready to charge off the rest, just go new invoice, remaining amount, choose the quote, and you can charge off the rest of the job. And then in terms of keeping track of those invoices, it's just done in this invoice section here. So we can see what stage each invoice is in. And I've just had a really good question about accounting packages there. So there's 3 we work with: Xero, QuickBooks, and Sage Business Cloud. So they obviously take care of the accounting side of things. So that integration makes it nice and seamless because it means we can jump into our invoices, select the invoices, and then just press send to accounting, which will just send them through to any of those platforms. For any of you who are already using one of those platforms, it's really easy to jump onto Tradify, because once you link the 2 systems up, any customers in your accounting software will come over to Tradify, and then Tradify will just use the next numbering sequence that's already in place. So really seamless and easy to set up if you are in that situation. Excellent, guys. So that was, I guess, an example of a job from the bare bones, basically, of a job to booking it in, to invoicing out. Before we sort of move on to any of the added benefits of Tradify, I just wanted to stop for a few seconds to see if there's any questions at all. Yeah, great question about billing runs. So the billing runs will essentially allow you to send multiple invoices in one go. So if I just go to new billing run, we can either bill multiple jobs in one go, or if there's multiple invoices under a job, we can bill those together as well. So just a nice way of sending out multiple invoices in one go. So done by customer or a job. If there's multiple invoices under a particular customer, but they're in separate jobs, it will just pull those together. Or if the invoices are all under one job, it can just do them basically all in one go. So it makes it nice and seamless for billing loads of invoices at once. Yeah, jump into the job. So this is a nice way of tracking your job. So I mentioned earlier those customizable job statuses. Now, where they really come into their own and they're really handy is when you've got a lot on and you need to come in and say, okay, which jobs have I got to invoice, for example, of my EICRs. Now remember, these can all be customized based on the jobs that you do. And let's choose a different one. Let's go for new fitting. Let's go for in progress new fitting. There we go. That's in high priority, for example. So it just helps you track stuff, especially when you've got a lot on, and see which stage each of your jobs are in. Reoccurring jobs can also be set up as well. So this is useful for things like annual boiler servicing. So you can just set up a reoccurring appointment and they'll get an SMS message sort of a day or so beforehand as a reminder. Yeah, so the great question on the map. So this gives you an idea of where you are for the day, or where you are for any date range really. It's also accessible through the iPad as well, or Android device. So I've not got a SIM card on my iPad at the moment, but if I did, this navigate button here would take me directly to the sat nav that's built into the particular device. So I think that's either Apple or Google, and then that will just take you to the job via a sat nav. So a nice quick way of jumping between jobs and knowing where you're going. And then in terms of your staff, you can also see where they are as well. So you can see all these staff are offline. If they're online, you'll just have another pinpoint as to where they are in the country. Yeah, so the difference between staff and subcontractors in Tradify is staff members have the ability to basically go in and change stuff. So doing things like adding pictures, timesheets is generally what people give them access to. You can give them access to invoicing if that's how you operate. But basically, I'll show you now that the permissions are all editable. So if I go to settings, staff members, you can jump in and change those based on what you do or don't want them to do on the software. Whereas connections, which people will use generally for subcontractors, is a case of sending them an appointment and they can accept or decline it, and you can see which appointments certain subbies are booked in for. And the subcontractor, the connections option, sorry, is completely free of charge as well, which is obviously a nice touch. There's not too many providers offering that sort of coverage of subcontractors completely free of charge. Inquiries, yeah, so inquiries can be directly linked up with your website or an email address. So again, just trying to keep everything under the one roof for you. Any inquiries that have gone through those avenues will come straight in your to-do list on Tradify here. You just click an inquiry and then just take the relevant action in the bottom right-hand side, which just moves it over to the next stage. So if it's a new customer, we need to copy it to a quote. It will search the system for an existing customer, so there's no duplicates. Or if it's a new customer, we can just create a new one straight away, and then we'll just move over to the quote stage. And lastly, we've got our inbuilt customer database here. So this is basically a storage of all your customers that you've got in Tradify. So if you ever get a query about an old job from a customer, or you just need to find some, for example, a gas safety record from ages ago, just search the address, phone number, email address, bring up that customer record, and then this is every job we've done for 1893 in this example, and all the data is going to be stored there. So there's no limit to the amount of data you can store in here, and it's all really easily accessible as you can see there. Cool, excellent guys. So that's the main elements of the software there. As I mentioned before, we do the 14-day free trial. It's completely free of charge, and you do get assigned a member of the team to help you throughout that time. So any questions that do crop up, you can always get in touch with us. Feel free just to fire away with any questions, or if there's anything you guys would like to see again, then also let me know, and I'd be more than happy to cover anything again for you. Yeah, great question on reports actually. So I'll just jump to the report section in the bottom left here. Now there's a few reports on here. So the first is a contact tracing report. So those of you with any staff members, if any of them had a COVID scare, you'd be able to see where they've been in relation to each other. The job financial report gives you an idea of gross profit margins for historical jobs. So there's no limit as to how far back you can go on this, and you can filter it by customer or type of job. Of course, historic job sheets can always be located as well and filtered by staff or customer. Your productivity report will give you an idea of billable versus non-billable staff hours. And then timesheets is total hours worked per employee. Yeah, there's a couple of ways of seeing the timesheet. So you can either generate a report, which is on a customizable date range, or just to get a snapshot for the week, just jump to the timesheet section here, and then this just gives you a quick snapshot, as you can see there, from a week period. Cool, lovely guys. So this has been basically a high-level overview of some of the problems that Tradify can solve and some of the features on there. As I say, we do the 14-day trial completely free of charge. You can also speak to one of the team as well for potentially a more tailored demo or setup call to really show you how your business can make the most of the software. So as I said, feel free to jump on that. You can just go through our website and it will ask you to sign up for the trial. No card details or anything needed. But excellent. I really do appreciate you joining me today, guys, and I hope you all have a really good evening. Cheers. Bye-bye.